She is not one of us.
She wasn't supposed to hear it. She had come downstairs for water, just water. It was 11:47 at night. The apartment was dark, and the only light was the pale glow slipping through the crack of the living room door. And then she heard her name, not said with love, not said with pride, said like a problem. Nadia stopped walking. Her bare feet went cold against the marble floor. Her hand found the wall. And she stood there, in the dark, in the home she had helped build, in the city she had moved to for love. And she listened to the man she had given everything to, tell his parents exactly what he thought of her. By the time the conversation ended, Nadia's world had split in two, the life she thought she had, and the truth she could no longer unsee. This is her story, but before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own marriage? Like you were standing in a room full of people who were supposed to love you, and somehow you were still alone? Comment below, because Nadia felt that, and what she was about to discover was so much deeper than she ever imagined. Nadia Ossi was 34 years old when she moved to Seoul. She had not moved for adventure. She had not moved for career. She had moved because of a man named Choi Min-jun, and because she believed, with the full force of her quiet, stubborn heart, that love was worth the distance. They had met in London. Min-jun was there for a finance conference. Nadia was a textile consultant, there for a meeting with a British design house. They had been seated next to each other at a dinner neither of them particularly wanted to attend. By dessert, they were laughing. By midnight, they were still talking on the steps outside the venue, the September wind cutting between buildings, neither of them willing to be the first to say goodnight. He called her the next morning, and the morning after that. For 8 months, they flew back and forth between cities. Seoul to Lagos, Lagos to Seoul. Nadia's suitcase lived half unpacked on her bedroom floor. Her passport collected stamps like a journal. And every time Min-jun looked at her across a restaurant table or reached for her hand in the back of a cab, she felt it. That quiet, certain feeling that this was the person she had been waiting for. They married in a small ceremony in Accra. Min-jun wore traditional Ghanaian kente fabric alongside his suit. Nadia cried when she saw him. He cried first.
You look so beautiful. I can't believe this is real.
It's real. I love you.
She moved to Seoul 6 weeks later. She was prepared for adjustment. She had read about Korean culture, studied the language seriously enough to hold basic conversations, and approached everything with the same careful intentionality she brought to her work. She knew it would not be easy. She knew there would be stares, moments of cultural friction, the particular exhaustion of being the only person who looked like her in most rooms. What she was not prepared for was his family. Min-jun's parents, his father Choi Byum-suk and his mother Park Hyun-ja, were traditional in the specific way that tradition can become armor. They were polite to Nadia's face. His mother served her tea when she visited. His father asked about her work with careful, formal questions. There were no raised voices, no confrontations, no dramatic moments that would have given Nadia something clear to point to. There was only coldness, measured, consistent, immaculate coldness. Hyun-ja never touched Nadia, not once. No hand on the shoulder, no embrace at greetings. She hugged Min-jun every single time and stood 2 steps back from Nadia, both hands folded at her waist, her smile precise as a cut. Sik spoke to Nadia slowly, the way one might speak to a child, or to someone not entirely trustworthy. He asked her questions, and then looked at Min-jun as though her answers required translation or verification. Min-jun noticed none of it, or perhaps he noticed and said nothing. Nadia wasn't sure which was worse. She told herself it was culture. She told herself it was time. She threw herself into building a life in Seoul with the same determination she had applied to everything else that had ever been hard. She learned the neighborhood. She found clients for her consultancy work. She cooked. She decorated their apartment. She learned the names of Min-jun's colleagues and remembered their birthdays, and showed up to every family dinner with gifts wrapped in careful paper. She was trying. She was always trying. And Min-jun would come home and say things like, "My parents think you're adjusting well," as though her comfort in her own marriage were a performance being evaluated by judges. She swallowed that too. That was the year before the night everything changed. It started with a phone call. Min-jun's parents were flying in from Daegu for the weekend. His father had a medical appointment in Seoul. His mother, as always, came along. They would stay with Nadia and Min-jun for 2 nights. Nadia spent the entire Thursday preparing. She cleaned the apartment until it was spotless. She went to the market and bought the specific ingredients Hyun-ja preferred. She made 2 dishes, one Korean, one a Ghanaian pepper soup she had perfected over years because it was Min-jun's favorite, and she set the table with the good dishes. Min-jun kissed her on the cheek when he came home and said, "It smells amazing." His parents arrived at 6. Dinner was fine, in the way their dinners were always fine. Hyun-ja complimented the food briefly, then spent most of the meal asking Min-jun about his work, his health, whether he was sleeping enough. Byung-sik ate without comment. The conversation moved between Korean and English in waves, with Nadia understanding roughly 70% and filling in the rest from context and expression. At one point, Hyun-ja looked at Nadia's hands, her rings, her bracelets, her carefully painted nails, with an expression Nadia had learned to recognize. It was not admiration, it was assessment, the look of a woman cataloging everything she considered foreign. Nadia smiled and passed the rice. After dinner, she cleaned up while Min-jun sat with his parents in the living room. This had become unspoken routine. She cleaned, they talked. She was not excluded exactly. The door was open. Min-jun called to her once to ask if she wanted tea, but she was not included either. She existed in the space between. She finished in the kitchen around 11. She changed into her night clothes. She read for a while. Min-jun came to bed around midnight, kissed her forehead, told her his parents were asleep, and that dinner had been wonderful. And within 10 minutes he was gone too, his breathing slow and even. Nadia lay awake. This was not unusual. She had spent a great many nights lying awake in Seoul, her mind turning over the quiet accumulation of small moments that she could never quite name as cruelty, but could never quite dismiss as nothing. Around 1:45 she got up for water. She moved quietly through the dark hallway, and then she heard voices, low but not low enough, her mother-in-law and Min-jun. He was awake. He had gotten up. She should have kept walking. She knew, even in the moment, that she should have kept walking. She stopped. "She doesn't understand our ways, Min-jun." His mother's voice was soft, almost tender, the way she was with him when she believed no one else was listening. "She never will. It is not her fault. It is simply who she is. Her culture is too different, her background. You cannot build a Korean home with someone who does not understand what a Korean home means." Silence. "She tries, Iyama. Trying is not the same as knowing. You can see it, can't you? She tries so hard because she knows she doesn't belong here. And that effort, that constant effort, is exhausting for everyone. It makes the house feel like a performance, not a home." Nadia's hand pressed harder into the wall. "Your father agrees with me. We didn't say anything before because we hoped, but Min-jun, it has been over a year. A year and she is still a guest in this life. That is not a wife. That is a visitor who does not know how to leave." Another silence, longer. "What do you want me to say, Iyama? I want you to be honest with yourself. Is this the life you imagined? Is she truly what you imagined for your future, for our family? When you have children, what will they be? What will they understand? Where will they belong?" Nadia stopped breathing. She waited for Min-jun to speak. She waited for him to say, "She is my wife." She waited for him to say, "I chose her and I would choose her again." She waited for him to say something that would give her somewhere to put the pain already spreading through her chest like cold water. He said, "I don't know, Iyama." 3 words, soft, tired, honest in the worst possible way. "I don't know." Nadia did not move for a long time. She stood in the hallway of her own home, her back against the wall, and she felt something inside her go completely still. Not broken, not yet, just still, the way the air goes still before a storm. She walked back to the bedroom. She did not get her water. She sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, and she looked at her husband's sleeping shape, and she thought, how long has he felt this way? How many dinners? How many nights? How many times had he smiled at her and said, "It smells amazing," while carrying this in his chest? She did not cry. She was surprised by that. She had expected tears, the immediate release of it. But what came instead was something colder and more specific. It was clarity. The particular, devastating clarity of a woman who has finally been given the language for something she already knew. She had felt like a visitor. He had just confirmed she was one. The next morning, Min-jun's parents left after breakfast. Hyun-ja thanked Nadia for the hospitality. Byung-sik nodded, the door closed. Nadia washed the cups. Min Jun came into the kitchen and put his arms around her from behind, his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you for everything this weekend. They really appreciated it." She kept washing. "Did they?" she said. Not a question, he paused. "Are you okay?" She turned off the tap. She turned around slowly and looked at him. Really looked, in the way she had not allowed herself to look in months, because looking clearly at a person you love requires a kind of courage that grief makes hard. "I heard you last night," she said. "You and your mother, I heard everything." The color shifted in his face. "Nadia, don't." Her voice was quiet but had an edge like glass. "Don't apologize yet. I don't want an apology. I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to tell me right now to my face, do you believe what she said? Do you believe I don't belong here?" Min Jun opened his mouth, closed it. "Because I have spent over a year trying to belong, Min Jun. I have learned your language. I have cooked your mother's food. I have sat at tables where nobody looked at me when they laughed. I have smiled through 1,000 moments that made me feel like I was wearing a costume. And I did all of it, because I thought you saw me. I thought that whatever the rest of the world thought, you saw me and you chose me, and that was enough." Her voice cracked just once on the last word. "Was any of that true, or have you been performing too?" Min Jun looked at her. His jaw was tight, his eyes were wet. And for a moment she thought he was going to break open. That all the things he had been keeping behind his careful, measured face were finally going to come forward. Instead, he said, "You're twisting what I said." She almost laughed. "I heard 3 words, Min Jun. I don't know. There's nothing to twist. It was late. My mother, she pushes, she has always pushed, and sometimes it's easier to what? To let her believe you agree with her. To let her believe that I am a mistake you're still deciding on. That is not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Her voice rose slightly, controlled but no longer quite contained. "Because I need you to say clearly, out loud, in the light of day. Not in a midnight conversation with your mother. I need you to tell me what I am to you. Am I your wife? Or am I an experiment that isn't going the way your family hoped?" The kitchen was very quiet. Min Jun looked at the counter. He looked at his hands. He looked everywhere that was not her face. And in that silence, Nadia got her answer. She packed a bag that afternoon. Not everything. Just enough. Her clothes, her passport, her laptop, the photograph of her mother she kept on the nightstand. She moved efficiently, the way she moved when she had made a decision and was no longer in the negotiation phase. Min Jun sat on the bed and watched her. "You're not being fair," he said. "Probably not," she agreed. She folded a blouse. "You can't leave over a conversation you weren't supposed to hear." She stopped. She looked at him. "You're right. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I was supposed to keep washing the dishes and saying thank you and performing gratitude for a space I have never actually been welcomed into. Would that have been fair to me, Min Jun?" He had no answer. "I'm not leaving forever," she said, and she was surprised to find she meant it. "I'm leaving because I cannot stay in this apartment right now and feel what I'm feeling and remain a person you deserve to speak to. I need space to think. And you need space to figure out what you actually believe, not what your mother believes, not what's easy at 11 at night, what you, Choi Min-jun, actually believe about your wife." She zipped the bag. "Call me when you know. If you believe Nadia deserved better, if you're watching this and your heart is with her right now, subscribe to this channel, because we tell stories about women who feel everything deeply, who love without apology, and who refuse to be invisible. Hit that subscribe button for Nadia. She needs to know someone is standing with her." Nadia stayed with a friend, a Nigerian woman named Chisum, who had married a Korean man 5 years prior and understood the particular texture of what Nadia was carrying without requiring her to explain every layer. Chisum made tea and did not ask too many questions. She gave Nadia the spare room and told her to stay as long as she needed. That first night, Nadia sat on the narrow bed and called her mother in Accra. Her mother's voice came on the line, and Nadia held the phone to her ear and said nothing for almost 30 seconds. Just breathed. "Nadia, baby," her mother said quietly. "What happened?" And then Nadia cried, finally. The tears she had been holding since the hallway came out all at once, hard and ungraceful, the kind of crying that makes no effort to be pretty. Her mother stayed on the line and said nothing, which was exactly right. Sometimes the only thing that helps is the presence of someone who has known you since before you needed to be strong. When it was over, her mother said, "Tell me," Nadia told her. Her mother listened to all of it. The dinner, the hallway, the kitchen, the bag. When Nadia finished, there was a pause. Do you love him? Yes. Does he love you? I think so. I thought so. Those are not the same answer. No, Nadia said, they're not. Her mother breathed slowly. Nadia, a man who loves you will face his mother, not loudly, not cruelly, but he will face her. He will say, this is my wife, and I have decided. A man who cannot say that is a man who has not finished deciding, and you cannot build a marriage with a man who is still choosing. Nadia pressed her hand over her eyes. Was I naive, Mama, to think love was enough? Love is never enough by itself, her mother said. Love is the seed. Courage is the soil. Without the courage to choose each other, out loud in front of people, even people who matter, the seed has nowhere to grow. Min-jun called twice that first day. She didn't answer. He texted, I'm sorry, please come home. She read it and said nothing. He called again on the second day. This time, she answered. I've been thinking, he said immediately before she could speak. His voice was raw. She could tell he had not been sleeping. So have I, she said. I need to see you, not on the phone. Please, she told him where she was. He arrived within the hour. He looked terrible. Dark circles, unshaved, his coat thrown on carelessly. She had never seen Min-jun look carelessly put together in the entire time she had known him. It was, she realized, the first time she had seen him stripped of his composure. She made him sit at Chaesim's kitchen table. Chaesim quietly left the apartment. Min-jun sat across from Nadia, and for a long moment he just looked at her, in the way she had asked him to look at her in their kitchen, and he had not been able to. Really looked, as though he was seeing her all at once. Who she was, what she had given, what he had almost thrown away with his silence. I have been a coward, he said. She said nothing, she waited. Not just that night, for a long time before that. My mother has always had opinions about my life, about my choices. When I was younger, I fought her on everything, and it destroyed the peace in our family for years. And when I got older, I learned to manage her instead of confronting her. To redirect, to placate, to say enough to quiet her down without causing a war. He pressed his hands flat on the table. I thought I was being strategic. I thought I was protecting you both. But what I was actually doing was protecting myself. Nadia looked at his hands. She said nothing. When she said those things the other night, and I said I don't know, I wasn't agreeing with her. I want you to know that. I was retreating. I was doing what I have always done with her, which is find the path of least resistance. And I know that is not good enough. That has never been good enough. You deserve a man who can say clearly to his own mother, to anyone, this is my wife, she is my choice, she is my home. His voice broke slightly on the last word. And I didn't say that, and I am so sorry, Nadia. Not the polite kind of sorry, the kind that costs something. I am sorry, Nadia looked at him for a long time. Your mother called me a visitor, she said. I know. She said I make the house feel like a performance. I know. And some part of me, the part that has been awake at 3 in the morning more times than I can count, wonders if she's right. Not about me, but about how I've been made to feel. Because you cannot love someone fully while keeping them at the edges of your life, Min-jun. And that is where I have been, the edges. He nodded. His eyes were bright. I called my mother this morning, he said. Nadia blinked. I told her that I heard how she spoke about you, that I had been dishonest with her and with myself by not correcting her long ago. I told her that Nadia is my wife, that I chose her, that she, my mother, could either find a way to welcome that or accept that she would see less of me, because I was not willing to maintain a relationship with her at the cost of my marriage. The kitchen was very still. What did she say? Nadia asked. She cried. Then she was angry. Then she was quiet. She said she needed time. He met Nadia's eyes. I told her to take all the time she needed, but that I would not be changing my position. This is the part of the story where some people expect a neat resolution. A bow, the mother calls back and apologizes. The husband carries his wife home. Everyone heals on schedule. That is not what happened. What happened was slower and more real. Nadia went back to the apartment 3 days later, not because everything was fixed, but because she was a woman who had made a decision, and she had decided that a man who calls his mother and stands his ground has earned the right to be spoken to. She went back, but she went back different. She sat Min-jun down the evening she returned, and she told him things she had never said, about the dinners where she felt invisible, about the afternoons she had cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't see, about the specific loneliness of being surrounded by a city that did not know what to do with her, and coming home to a man who sometimes seemed more committed to keeping the peace than to keeping her. He listened to every word. He did not defend himself. He did not reach for her too quickly or try to compress her pain into something more manageable. He sat with it. And when she finished, he said, "Tell me what you need. Not what do you want me to do. Not what can I fix. Tell me what you need." She almost loved him harder in that moment than she ever had. This is the moment that will shake you, because this is not just Nadia's story. This is the story of every woman who has ever loved across a distance, cultural, familial, emotional, and wondered whether the person she was crossing toward would come halfway. Drop a comment right now. What would you have done if you were Nadia? Would you have walked back through that door? They built something new after that. It was not the marriage they had started with. It was harder and more honest, and in many ways more real. Minjun began to actively include Nadia, not as a performance but as a correction. He spoke about her to his colleagues with the full warmth he had always shown in private. He took her to his parents' home in Daegu 2 months later, and when his mother made a comment about Nadia's cooking being interesting, he said, quietly and without drama, "Nadia is an extraordinary cook, Ioma. You are lucky to have had her food in your home." His mother had looked at him for a long moment. Then she had looked at Nadia. It was not an apology, but it was a pause. And in that pause was the first breath of something that might eventually become acceptance. Nadia continued building her life and soul with the same determination she had always brought, but no longer from a place of proving herself. She had crossed that threshold. She no longer needed to earn her place. She had a husband who had finally loudly chosen her, and that was enough to build on. Her mother called a month later to check in. "How are things?" she asked. Nadia was standing at the window of their apartment, watching the Han River catch the evening light, Seoul spreading out below her in all its overwhelming, beautiful complexity. "Better," she said, "not perfect, but better in the ways that matter." "Is he trying?" "Every day." Her mother made the sound she made when she was satisfied with an answer. Then she said, "You know, your grandmother always said, love is not what you feel in the easy days. Love is what you find out about someone when things become hard, when it costs them something. That's when you learn who they truly are." Nadia thought about Minjun on the phone with his mother, the tremble in his voice, the held posture of a man doing something difficult. "I think I found out," she said. "Then you have what you need," her mother said. "The rest is just work." Nadia Osi did not get a fairy tale ending that night in the hallway. What she got was harder and more valuable. She got the truth. About her husband's weakness and his love. About her own extraordinary strength. About the marriage she actually had versus the one she'd been carefully performing. She heard things no wife should have to hear, and instead of collapsing, she stood up. She said what needed to be said. She gave her husband the chance to become the man she had believed he was, and he took it. Not every woman in her position would have gone back. And there would be no shame in that choice either. But Nadia went back because she had done something courageous enough to look, clearly, without the comfort of illusion, at the full complicated truth of her marriage. And she decided it was worth fighting for. There is a particular wisdom in that. In choosing to stay not out of fear, or habit, or the weight of what people might say, but out of a clear-eyed, fully informed love. Not every loss is an ending. Some are simply the burning away of what was never real, so that what remains is finally truly yours. If this story moved you, if Nadia's courage and pain and quiet strength stayed with you, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel because we will keep telling these stories, the messy, real, deeply human ones, for as long as you'll let us. Comment below. What do you take from Nadia's story? What did she teach you today? Thank you for watching all the way to the end. It means everything. Until next time.